Hey Wealth Lab users, Glitch here. Today we're going to talk about what's new in Wealth Lab 7 Build 21. So let's take a look at the home page, our release log Build 21. The first item I see is you can configure parameters for MetaStrategies and fixed some issues with MetaStrategies. So yeah, actually in this build, Wealth Lab 7's MetaStrategy component had a complete overhaul. So let's dive in and take a look. So I'm going to start by opening a normal strategy, the go-to strategy here that I usually start with, my deterministic knife juggler. And we're just going to run this on its default settings of 2 years of historical data, running it on the NASDAQ 100 daily scale. The position size setting is a starting capital of 200,000 and it's using a fixed position size of 20,000. So I'm using a fixed position size because I'm using this in my Wealth Signals publishing, so it makes it a little bit easier for me to figure out the Wealth Signals positions, but that's kind of another topic. Let's stick with our meta strategy here. Let's take a note here of the profit, 52,243.19. All right, so let's put this now in a Wealth Lab 7 meta strategy. So we can go to our menu and say new strategy, new meta strategy. So a meta strategy in Wealth Lab 7 is a way to combine multiple strategies into one and see the results in a combined fashion. So you do that by dragging other strategies onto this MetaStrategy surface. So I'll drag my deterministic knife juggler on here. When I drag it on, it creates this MetaStrategy component block. So every strategy you drop here will have its own block. You establish some settings here. For example, position size. It'll take the default of what was saved with the strategy. So it's keeping the 20,000 fixed position size. You'll notice there's no starting capital here. That's because the starting capital will be based on whatever the parent, strategy starting capital is. So we need to change this to 200,000. And likewise, we should change the margin factor because my DKJ is using a margin factor of 2. So in order to get the same results, we'll need to set a margin factor of 2 here in the parent strategy. So that's all set. Let's give it a run. I see a much bigger profit here, and I know why. I forgot to change the backtest date range. So let's bring that down from 10 back to 2, which is what I used before, and let's run that again. Okay, here we go. Look at that. The profit in the meta strategy matches to the penny to my strategy window. So far, so good. So at this point, I should mention the feature that we implemented here is being able to configure the parameters of each MetaStrategy component by using this configure button here. Previously, that wasn't possible. But to finish off this demonstration, I want to drag another strategy onto here. And I'm going to drag a rotation strategy, ultimate oscillator rotation. And it's going to run on the Dow 30. Because I now have 2 strategies, each of these strategies will take 50% of the starting equity to use for their own trades. So you can change that here. You can, play with these, controls to manipulate the weighting of each strategy, but I want to leave them both at 1. But because the starting capital is effectively halved, I need to go here and increase the starting capital to 400,000 in order to get matching results. So now let's run this again. So both strategies will run, and then we'll see the combined result. All right, here's our combined result. We even have a nice combined equity curve showing you how the two strategies worked in conjunction with each other. But if let's go take a look again at the MetaStrategy tab. And I noticed that the profit 52,27475 is slightly different. So what could account for that? Before you jump on the Wealth Lab forum and report a bug, let's make sure you go through, every possible discrepancy that, or reason for the discrepancy here. So, I can now go to the metrics report and do a quick kind of side-by-side comparison of metrics reports here. And I can see there was a margin interest here on my deterministic knife juggler. So it went into margin a little bit. If I look at the equity curve, you see how these spikes go below 0. These were points where that strategy went into margin. And because it went into margin, it had to pay margin interest. However, in my MetaStrategy, because we have such a higher starting capital, the knife juggler was able to complete all the trades without going into margin. Let's see here. Let me pull up my calculator and do like a quick calculation here. All right, so let's see. 52,274.75 minus 52,243.19 is 3156, which is exactly the margin interest paid. So before you jump on the forums and report a bug, please check all of the possible reasons why you might be seeing differences here. All right, so that's the MetaStrategy overhaul and the ability to configure the parameters. Next, we have symbol equity graph added to the by symbol performance visualizer. So we can go back to our main strategy window here and take a look at the by symbol performance visualizer. In Wealth Lab 7, when you run a backtest, it presents to you the results of the backtest in numerous different ways. Each one of these tabs is a different performance visualizer, and there's even more of these available via extensions. This is an extendable feature of Wealth Lab 7. You could even program your own visualizers and get your own new tabs here if you're a C# developer comfortable in a development tool like Visual Studio. So let's check out the by symbol tab here. This shows you the profit and various other metrics for each symbol that was in the portfolio. So the new feature here is as I click these symbols, I could see the historic profit curve of how that symbol performed. So that's the new feature there, the symbol equity graph and the by symbol performance visualizer. The last main thing I want to cover in build 21 is a new class that we added to the wealthlab.core library. It's called PriceGrid. It's the basis for a lot of things in our chart patterns extension, which we'll cover later, but it basically allows you to map prices in a 2D grid of cells. So the easiest way to get a demonstration of this is to go to the quick ref by clicking this little book icon here. And then you can find that class in the list here, PriceGrid. And you can click on one of these methods. Compare, for example, is one of its methods. And there's an example code. So if you click this button, WealthLab 7 will open up that example code and run that example for you right off the bat. So let's take a look at the code and see what it's doing. So it's saying it's finding the first 10% 10-bar gain in the data, and then it's creating a price grid based on the preceding 10 bars of data. So what it's doing is it's looking through the data, it's finding the first time there was a 10% gain within 10 bars or trading days of data. So after that point, it's going 10 bars prior, and it's capturing the 10 bars of data that led up to that 10% gain, and it's capturing that in a price grid. So I want to run this on Bitcoin, for example, say BTC.USD. So that'll use the built-in crypto compare data provider. You can see here the data source is crypto compare. So it actually ran this on Bitcoin. So let's take a look here. You see it plotted this little kind of pictogram over here. This is the price grid that it encountered. So it found the first period in the data where there was a 10% gain in 10 bars. The price action leading up to that move had this kind of shape. And so then what this script is doing, and you can kind of analyze it a little bit more thoroughly on your own, is it's taking this price grid and it's comparing it to every other bar of data in the chart and creating this indicator here called map values. Whenever the price action is looking close to this price grid, this indicator will rise. Now, in our chart patterns extension, we've formalized this into a new indicator called PriceGrid CF for confidence factor. But here we're kind of doing it manually in the script. So you can see when this line gets high, like near 80, then the shape of this move is similar to the price grid that happened here. And then the strategy is buying whenever that confidence level goes above 80. So there you go. That's the price grid. We'll be going into a lot more depth of price grid when we get into the chart patterns extension, which is now available on wealthlab.com. But I think that's it for this video. Finally seeing the light of day with these build videos getting caught up. We just released build 26 today, so I have about 5 more build videos to get caught up on before I'm fully caught up, but we're getting there. Thanks everyone, and see you on the WealthLab forum.